And then, yeah, so if you'll bear with the formalities here, we're going to be just filming the discussion today so that we can post it out on the opportunity to ensure that everyone who's applying has access to all the same information. So microphones and everything is necessary for that. So my name is Carl Leclerc, and I'm the Public Art Program Manager for the city, so I'll be project managing this project in association with the rest of the project team that will be in charge of developing the park, which is still in early design phases. So quick agenda for today, we're just going to go walk through the application packet, talk a little bit more about the background development of the project expectations, timeline, go through the application process, evaluation process, next steps, and then answer any questions you have. So this is really the best opportunity that you have to directly ask us questions and find clarifications that you need. Aside from today, any questions will have to go through Laura Sanders in a written email to Laura, and then she will compile all the answers to any additional questions and put those out as an addenda onto the opportunities page on the website. So the opportunity, hopefully you found it through our website. It's located here in the calls and opportunities section. And all the opportunities that we offer as a department are located right here at the top in these boxes. We do offer and host other opportunities down there, so if you haven't had a chance, check that out. So if you click into the apply now, so the landing page here, we just try to sort of capture all the high level information so that way you can identify if you're interested and available for the project. There's a couple different items here that are in addition to our typical call. So we've added project design documents here. I'll pull that up in just a minute after we go through the application to talk a little bit further about how the project has developed so far. But this project is a partnership with Capital City Development Corporation and the Parks Department, Public Works Department, and Planning and Development Services. So it's a pretty big project. It's a full $3 million project with a majority of the funding coming from Capital City Development Corporation and then $1 million in contributions from the Parks and Rec Department here at the city. The project, I'll pull up the call and we can kind of dig into some of the background. So we have a budget range which is a little bit different. The budget range is up to $200,000, and that's identified because of what's been laid out as the process. So the park has largely the conceptual design has been established through early public outreach and planning phases. And so CCDC is also working with GGLO, who they've contracted with for design services. And GGLO has developed this packet of information that's attached as additional information. This option 2, this sort of diagonal layout for the development of the new park was selected through public outreach and then stakeholder input on the project. And you can see that, so it's a brand new park. There's actually a facility that's going to start construction just to the south of the park site. That construction will start this summer and be wrapping up about this time next year when construction on the actual park will begin. So we have a good bit of time to move through the selection process and then artist design to be able to incorporate the artwork into the actual construction of the park. So this document gives you kind of a sense of the background of the design phase and how we've arrived. So these were sort of high-level conceptual image boards that GGO put together, thinking about different materials and approaches to finishes of the park. When they started to identify what the sort of focal feature or iconic portion of the park would be, they took this out to the public, and the public identified that they wanted both a water feature and public art. And so at this point, based on budgets and maintenance responsibilities, we're asking that the water feature and the public art feature are separate, but through that design process, hoping that they'll in some way speak to each other on some So this is a little bit more about, the park is really intended to be sort of activated for daily use by maybe workers or soon to be residents in the area. But it's also intended to be programmable for different events. So this is kind of a staging area. There's parking spaces along both Bannock and 11th for food trucks or other vendors to set up. There will be hardscape areas both to the north and south of the actual green space. And the parking space just to the west will accommodate for stage setup or performances on site. And then these are some of the themes that had started to be established for the site or for the park. GGLO brought in some consultants to help develop the theming for the space, and they're really drawn to some of the places in proximity. So the El Kara Shrine, which is pretty close, the Modern Hotel. Thinking about how this work might sit within other art typologies throughout the city within our collection. So different possibilities that could present avenues for approaching the project. They were interested in kind of all the lights around. This is from Rocket Neon, local vendor, some works from our collection. Interested in this idea of really celebrating the different events or programming that could happen on the site. And then in terms of thinking about where the park is actually located, they're interested in this idea of its kind of central point within the valley, located between the wooded areas to the north, the desert to the south, and actually Boise and this park as kind of a cooling oasis or a respite from the heat in the city. They're interested in, so the water feature that they're looking to develop will likely not be a traditional water feature, but they're looking at a fog option or like a steam effect. So that could create some potential interesting avenues for having the artwork relate to or respond to that fogging effect. And that was in reference to the geothermal activity that we have here. So this is kind of, so this one, the park as the oasis, talks about this kind of cooling area in the center. The fog will likely be located somewhere within this vicinity of the park, within the green open space. They're going to be adjusting the public right-of-way to add this pedestrian bump out on the corner. And then the wooded sort of hardscaped areas will be more traditional plaza type seating. And it does call out that this is kind of the primary location that we're looking for the main focal feature. Whether that becomes the fog feature or the public art feature is still up to be designed through the process. Although it was identified that this location, because it's located on the corner, is the most highly visible, prominent location on the site. And then a couple other different viewpoints of that same location. So there's high visibility from various aspects on the approach to this site. So that's a little bit of the background of the document, and we'll go into the opportunity. So all of this work has been developed, and the standing project team is composed of a CCDC representative, Parks and Rec representative, Planning and Development Services representative, Arts and History now, and then the Raffinelli Nahas is developing that site just to the south, and so they'll be on the design team and selection committee for the project. So that $150,000 to $200,000 it's up to $200,000. We also have an additional $25,000 available specifically for the installation, so construction of any footings or attachment points, and then the actual physical installation and assembly of whatever the artwork is on the site. So that kind of covers the opportunity section and background. If anybody has questions, just feel free to yell them out or raise your hand at any point. The desired services outcome section just spells out a little bit further what type of artist we're looking for. Because we're looking to bring the artist onto the design team and work with the design team through design development, it's critical that we find an artist that can be available for that time period and work cohesively with a pretty varied stakeholder group. So we will be Out of this RFQ, we will be potentially identifying up to 3 finalists who we'll invite for interviews. So we're not doing a design competition, but we'll make our final decision based on the interview process to make sure that, that artist is a good fit to come onto the project team and work through that design phase. The site images, this kind of gives you, again, a reference to where the space is, the Oasis theme. So the timeline, so we're here at the application workshop. Deadline is August 7th, 1 p.m. No late submissions will be accepted. All that information will go through purchasing. So Laura Sanders will be your contact there. So we anticipate having the selection panel. It's already scheduled for the very end of August, and so early September we'll be looking to schedule artist interviews, go through that process. And then really proceed right into design phase after a kickoff meeting with the design team. The installation right now is scheduled out to late summer 2020, which is when we anticipate wrapping up on construction of the park. The installation will be coordinated with the existing contractor on the site. I'm not sure that contractor has been determined yet, but that contractor will help provide the services for installation and assembly, as well as identifying needs for if there's a need for access to power or other resources that can be coordinated through that design team effort. So the application process, this section just lays out how to prepare your application and deliver it in the proper method. So there's eBid option if you're into either BidNet or DemandStar, or you can hand deliver or mail your application in, and all of that information and instruction is located here. So the actual evaluation process and the forms to be submitted is laid out here. So we're looking for the application form, which I'll go over in just a second, mandatory form, letter of interest, ability to provide. So we get a lot of questions about what the letter of interest should contain. I like to view the letter of interest as a good opportunity for you to present your voice into the equation, because at least in this initial round, you won't have the opportunity to present to that selection committee. So use the letter of interest to maybe speak more about your qualifications, specific past projects that have prepared you for this type of opportunity. If you want to talk about if you're a collaborative effort, what that collaboration looks like, describing team members' involvement. So think about how you want to address the panel through your voice in that letter. The references, we will call references, and we're also requiring letters for this one as well, based on the interview process. And then really, we're going to be looking a lot at the examples of past work. We've provided an image list as well that corresponds to all those images for further information, and I'll go through those here in just a second. The addenda, so after today's discussion, we'll compile all the questions that were asked, put together the answers, and put those out in addenda. That'll be posted to this page here, added up into this top section, and then before the deadline, as questions are submitted, we'll compile those answers and post them here as well. So please continue to check for further information that comes in. So the evaluation process, so I described the makeup of the selection panel or the design team. They're essentially the selection committee with the addition of a local artist, a local arts professional, and then by our Percent for Art ordinance, we have a Arts and History Commission member and a volunteer committee member for the Arts and History Department. So the selection committee will be a bit expanded from the project team, and they will be the ones that will be reviewing all the application material and then making a recommendation to City Council on who receives the award. So this section, again, breaks down the details and the points associated with each of the application materials. So 50 points for the letter of interest, 100 points for past experience, 100 points for the references, and then heavily weighted is the examples of past work. And so for the examples of past work, you have the ability to provide up to 10 images. So if you don't have 10 good images of work that relates to this opportunity, then it's perfectly acceptable to submit less than 10 images. We frequently see artists trying to add in those additional images that make the 10 images, and a lot of times that limits or works of lesser quality will sort of confuse the selection committee. So focus on high quality works that are representational of the skills required to meet the needs of a project of this scope, and really focus on just images of the artwork.
Question about like types of things we can provide. Is an image better or video is better?
We will accept the video as well.
And does the video have to capture all 10 images, or can the video be of one project?
It can be of one project.
And so a small video counts as an example.
That would be one of your 10 examples.
All right, thanks. Sorry.
Yeah. So that's a good question. Also, each image should only contain one project. So don't try to collage in 10 different projects into one image file.
I just didn't want to waste time because we put together some videos of the production process and some stuff.
Okay.
Include one video just a project.
Yeah. So I would.
It's just one project. It's not like all.
Yep.
10 things. Okay.
Yeah. So that would count for one file. Yep. So we'll have to put some addendum information on that, but we can accept a video file. So the standards on the image size is to 300 dpi, no longer than 10 inches on one side, is to ensure that when we meet as a selection committee, we're typically viewing artworks on a screen like this. And so those size constraints ensure that we have a high quality image that's able to be understood on a scale like this. So just make sure that you have nice quality images, one image per project, and then up to 10 projects, essentially. If you want to do a detail, if you have maybe 3 projects and want to break up your images to have 3 images of one project with details, that's acceptable as well, but it's 10 images total. So however you want to use that, however you can best communicate your work in that scenario. The evaluation, this talks through, so we'll compile all the information in the applications that they come in. We deliver that information to the selection committee in advance of the actual committee meeting. So everyone has the ability to in-depth review all the material. They come with their scores prepared to that committee meeting. We compile all the scores, create an average, and that creates a hierarchy of scoring of the applicants. From there, that's not a set, that won't necessarily be the set outcome. We then work through and discuss all the attributes of the applicants through that committee meeting and then come to a consensus at the end. That selection committee just simply makes a recommendation to the next levels of approval bodies. And so the approval bodies from there is the Arts and History Commission, which is a mayoral appointed commission of community members that help in the approval process for our department. We also have to take it to the Parks Commission, which is the same type of body, CCDC Commission, and then to City Council. So it's a fairly extensive approval process for this project based on the dollar threshold and the prominence of the project. So then we'll get into the actual forms that you'll need to submit. So the application form is provided here. You can download this, print it out, fill it out by hand. You can fill it out if you have a PDF fillable software that you can type all the information in. We'll take an electronic signature as long as it's verified through one of those types of softwares. And just include as much information here as you can. The references, so try to provide references that can speak to your experience on projects of this nature. So if you have past design team experience or collaborative efforts, we're looking for references that can speak to your involvement on projects like this. And then we've provided the image list here. So example 1, the numbering conventions should correspond with the image numbering. So we want to be able to take image number 1 and understand all the information associated with it here. So as much information that you have about the project that you're submitting here, the additional information and comment section, I always encourage artists to fill this out because it's, again, another opportunity for you to bring your voice into that equation with the selection committee. So anything if the work is still in progress, if it was a conceptual rendering of a project that was maybe unrealized, this would be a great area to speak about that. If you want to talk further about materials or fabrication techniques or successes or awards of a particular project, use that additional comment section. And the rest of the document, going through general conditions, this is general conditions associated with the city's purchasing process. If there's any questions there, Laura can help us out in answering those. This is kind of standard boilerplate. And then this is a draft contract, so just a sample contract, so that you're familiar with if you were to receive the offer for the commission. This is pretty similar to the contract that we would use. So don't fill this out, but this is just for information to understand the specific terms that you would be agreeing to if you accepted the project. And so with that, let's see. So I pulled up the site here. You can learn more about Capital City Development Corporation if you're interested. The park is located within their Westside district. So I pulled up a map. This has other examples of their investment and improvements located here. They also have some additional information about the park development. This essentially covers the narrative that I delivered earlier on about the design packet. But I will stand for questions now.
Since we are recording, you need to speak into the official microphone. Okay, so for the images that you've shown us for the fog machine, is those square structures that you're walking through, is that a definitive idea to work around?
No, so this was an early conceptual design that was prepared by GGLO, the contractor that CCDC hired. So this was just high level placeholder of what could potentially be there.
Okay.
Where's the location in relationship to where we are right now?
Sure. So I'll just pull up the map here and bear with me. So this is the project site here, located at the intersection of 11th and Bannock. And City Hall is located right here on between Idaho and Maine, just on Capitol Boulevard. So we're about 5 or 6 blocks away. We're 5 or 6 blocks east of the project site right now.
So it's very urban.
Yes. And so this, the Westside District, I believe sunsets as an urban renewal district in 2026 or 2027. And so this is kind of one of the first major investments into that district by the Capital City Development Corporation. And they're already seeing with the development of the new facility to the south that this is going to be a catalyst for development in that area. There's a number of surface parking lots in the area. And this is really kind of almost on the divide of the downtown proper area. And so they're hoping that this investment will help, again, to catalyze investments in the area and help to grow that space as a more urban area. But yes, it is very much an urban space.
Any idea what the relationship is of business to residential in the immediate area?
There's very few residential units in the area, and so they're hoping that this will become a green space to provide access to open space for future residents in the area.
Can you go back to the conceptual design for just a second?
This one?
Yeah. So basically the extended part, the pedestrian part, that's all conceptual. There's the green space or the green like planters and all that stuff. That's just potential, and that area is where you guys want the art project, or is it open for the entire park? Or
Yeah. I'm going to go back to the design documents. And so what's laid out here right now, this is still in the sort of conceptual design phase. So the materials, finishes, exact layout of everything hasn't yet been determined. And so the artist role in the design team is to propose through interactions with the design team a solution to the project. And so I think there is the possibility of addressing that pedestrian bulb out at the intersection, but also there is a possibility to integrate a full cohesive experience throughout the park. So right now it's we kind of left the opportunity fairly loose in its scope to allow the artist to come in with a creative vision on how to use the budget and address the needs of the project.
So some of the design of the park could actually be manipulated around the piece itself.
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
It's because the final location and presentation of the fog feature hasn't been solidified yet. So here, there's these large rectangular works in an actual image of an existing work. This is kind of another iteration on that. This had been identified as the location early on, but we've kind of backstepped to say we really need to bring the artist onto the team and allow them to work creatively with the rest of the team to identify whether it's a standalone large-scale sculptural work or smaller integrated works throughout the site. It's really pretty open at this point. Yeah, please. This is we have plenty of time to talk through this. So any questions now?
Okay, so just to clarify, there's team after team after team involved in the actual planning, the presentation of the idea, and then the rendering of the actual art piece itself are the responsibility of the artist, and then the installation will include architectural design to make sure it's structurally sound, etc. Is that correct? So that the entire fabrication is for the artist, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So the artist, with the available budget, will be responsible for all aspects of design, travel to the site if needed, fabrication, material procurement, fabrication, delivery to the site, and engineering of the design. The only portion that's held out for the $25,000 is for the actual construction of and/or development of attachment points or footings, and then that contractor will also do the actual physical installation and any necessary assembly of component parts of a project.
So does that include laying of a foundation? Let's say it's a structure that has to have some sort of cement pedestal. Is that included, or is that on the responsibility of the artist?
That would be on the responsibility of the separately hired contractor.
Okay, perfect.
But it would be expected that the artist provides the design and engineered documents for that pedestal or footing.
Sorry. Is there anything else, like you guys were saying, that the city is interested in and having in that space? You mentioned like a place that's interactive, a place that's like potentially cooling. Was there anything else of interest that came up when you guys were discussing the park that that might be an added benefit?
Yeah, I think sort of helping to establish an identity for the park. So something that, the team frequently spoke about, some sort of iconic piece that people would maybe refer to that artwork over the actual park. So something that's going to help to establish the identity. So the theme of cooling oasis, that's kind of the groundwork of the approach to the overall finishes and aesthetic of the space. And the artwork, I think, should fit into that established theme. And also sort of help to establish an identity for the place. So, like I said, it could be something large scale, iconic that stands on that corner as a beacon or a signifier of the place. or something that's, infused throughout the space that establishes an overall or cohesive identity.
Essentially, though, you're looking for an individual identity for that location versus tying it to anything, other parks or other established areas. I noticed there's some themes that have been tied together in some of the parks,
Yeah.
but in this case, they're looking for something separate and iconic.
Yes.
That was
Yes.
a good question the gentleman before me asked, so that's good.
Yeah.
Kind of narrowing in on what we need to develop art, so.
Yeah, as I mentioned, this is being kind of that first major investment into this district. So they're kind of looking as this is a leadership step for the entire district to establish this as, so we have the downtown, we have the Grove Plaza. That's very much a recognizable identity of that place. This space is sort of striving to become the Grove Plaza of the Westside district. But again, with its very unique, or with its own identity, its own unique identity.
If we go to this site today, what's at the site right now?
So the site is currently surface parking. So this is the site. The El Korah Shrine is the only existing structure on the block. The Boise Cascade building, located just to the north of the site, is owned and operated by the same organization that will develop this southern portion of the block.
So that this building is going to remain, or is it going to go away?
The El Korah Shrine will remain, and as well as this little quarter parking lot here. So if we go back to that, so this is that remaining, they're going to do improvements to the surface parking here. El Korah Shrine will remain where it is. This is the proposed building, which is moving through permitting, I believe, right now, and then the park site. So this is existing surface parking. But you can get a sense of maybe the character of the existing surrounding area if you go to the site today.
If you've been chosen as the final artist and you're working with all the different people and entities, and they've selected a proposal concept from you, are they still going to be able to go through changes with the other entities?
Well, changes in the artist design?
Well, yeah, in the concept.
Yes. We developed the interview process and the artist on design team process to be able to go through an iterative design process. And so if we get to the point of having an approved design, there's always, flexibility in that process to,
Okay.
Naturally we see in all of these projects slight changes in the design as it actually moves into reality. So I think, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the number 7 on that map, the proposed possible area for a stage, is the stage going to be a permanent feature? Are you looking for a built-in stage or just a designated area to facilitate mobile stages for performance art, etc.?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it is just an open space that's allocated for a potential pop-up stage or a movable stage. However, there was some discussion early on that could potentially be open to, if the selected artist wanted to propose that as part of the work or as the work. I think that's an open possibility. There were some early examples that were shared by the design team early on as looking at artist-designed performance spaces. And then I'll just also note on what's been established so far. Also, I think in having the benefit of having the artist on the design team too, is also looking at where potential synergies could be found in using existing construction budget to add aesthetic enhancements to, say, some of these are like large concrete seat walls that extend and cantilever over the steps. So, you know, there's available budget there too that could potentially be identified to add artist enhancements to existing construction line items. Yeah.
So you're looking for an individual artist, but what are there any stipulations against a team or a collaborative work between artists?
No, yeah, I think we're definitely open to a team or a collaborative, or I think though, when looking at a team or a collaborative, unless it's an established team that has past experience, be very specific within the letter of interest. If you're going to collaborate with another artist or with a team, I would be very clear on a breakdown of roles and skills, and you can provide a separate resume and references for each team member if needed.
Okay, but still like one application, but the separate
One application,
facets.
but yeah.
Okay.
If you have maybe 2 or 3 prominent team members, I would try to include credentials, references, resumes from each of those team members.
Okay.
If it's not an established collaborative or business entity.
I think you answered my question, but so if it's an established business, I work with my wife and partner on all this, so that would be considered just one.
Yeah.
application, one
Yep.
resume, one-
Yeah, so we see you know, like typically artists will collaborate as an LLC or something like that, and if you have work experience as that entity, then one application and everything will do. But I was trying to provide clarification on if there's 2 separate artists that are coming together.
A new artist I haven't worked with or something.
Yeah.
Okay, that
Yep.
makes sense. Because normally it's just one application process.
Yeah.
While I've got the mic, I might ask a technical question too.
Yep.
I noticed on the resume section and the past work section, there's no requirement for budgets of past work. Is it help to include budgets of past projects?
If you'd like, yeah, it's
Requiring that. in
we're not
this-
requiring budget thresholds on past projects.
Okay.
But if you'd like to include that for scale and scope and clarification, then yeah, that can be helpful.
A lot of times it's included, so I was just noticing that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hmm. Okay, well, thanks for attending today. We appreciate seeing you show up, and now you have faces for our names, and Laura will field any additional questions through email, and like I said, we'll just continue to post additional information and addenda to the opportunity section. And if you're on BidNet or DemandStar, those notifications will go out through that system. So anything else before we close out? All right, thank you.